It was a rainy Friday evening when Jamal Carter, a black waiter, wiped down his last table, dreaming quietly of a better tomorrow. Wealthy diners laughed around him under the warm glow of lanterns, oblivious to his exhaustion and quiet prayers for something to change soon. In a corner, booth sat a woman in a glittering dress, clearly drunk, her untouched plate and half-empty sake bottle whispering their own silent story. Her jeweled fingers fumbled as she reached again for her glass, knocking it over, startling herself and drawing disapproving looks from nearby customers. Jamal hurried over, lowering his voice to calm her, gently suggesting she stop drinking and offering instead to help her safely get home. At first, she scoffed at him, laughing softly, clearly surprised anyone dared speak to her like that, though her eyes shimmered with unspoken pain. When she clumsily spilled her purse, Jamal knelt quickly, gathering her scattered belongings while shielding her from the harsh stares of wealthy patrons nearby. "You're kind," she whispered hoarsely, her mascara smudged, her voice breaking, and Jamal just smiled faintly, sensing how desperately she needed someone to care tonight. Once again, he quietly offered his help. "Please, let me take you home. No trouble. You deserve to get there safely." After a long pause, she finally gave a weak nod, her resistance crumbling under the weight of exhaustion and quiet despair in her eyes. He supported her carefully as they stepped outside into the chilly rain, his arm around her shoulders as cars passed by, ignoring them both completely. Jamal raised his hand to flag down a cab, but each driver shook their head and drove off at the sight of her unsteady condition. He checked her phone for an emergency contact, but it was locked, and she was too dazed to tell him the passcode herself. Sighing quietly, Jamal guided her to his own battered old car parked nearby, helping her into the passenger seat with careful, respectful hands. The ride was silent except for the steady sound of the wipers, her head resting against the cold window as raindrops raced down the glass. Finally, she murmured an address one he recognized as belonging to the wealthiest hilltop neighborhood, the kind of place he'd only seen in magazines. Jamal drove slowly, glancing at her occasionally, feeling both protective and strangely sad for the woman who clearly carried so much hidden pain. The driveway was long, lined with flowering cherry trees, leading up to an enormous mansion that glowed faintly in the darkness of the rainy night. Helping her out of the car, Jamal supported her as they climbed the slick marble steps, his shoes squeaking faintly on the polished stone surface. At the massive wooden door, he rang the bell and waited, hearing the echo inside, though nobody seemed to be coming to answer. After a long silence, she muttered something under her breath and fumbled with the handle herself, pushing the door open just enough to enter. Jamal followed, guiding her into a cavernous foyer lit by a crystal chandelier that sparkled like ice, his breath catching at the luxury surrounding him. He helped her to a velvet sofa, draped a blanket over her shoulders, and quietly fetched a glass of water from the pristine white kitchen. As he set the glass down, she reached out and caught his hand. Her eyes clearer now, but still wet, her grip surprisingly firm. "Why would you help me?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with confusion and something that almost sounded like hope, though faint and fragile. Jamal thought a moment, then said simply, "Because you needed someone, and I was here. That's all. Just seemed right to me." Her lips quivered into the smallest smile as she whispered, "Most people just walk away," before finally closing her eyes and drifting into sleep. Jamal set his modest business card on the table, just his name and waiter, then quietly let himself out, not expecting her to remember him tomorrow now. "The owner wants to see you immediately." The next day at work, his manager stopped him at the door, looking nervous and saying, "Go upstairs." Jamal's stomach churned as he climbed the stairs, unsure what awaited him, though a strange sense of calm settled over him as he knocked. "Do you know who I am now?" she asked with a faint smile. Inside sat the same woman, now impeccably dressed, her hair perfect, her sharp eyes fixed on him as though sizing up his soul. "Good afternoon, Mr. Carter," she said smoothly, her tone warm but commanding. "Didn't matter to me. You needed help and I was just there," he finished quietly. Recognition dawned on him, his breath catching. She was Naomi Watanabe, billionaire owner of Tokyo House and dozens of high-end restaurants worldwide. "I didn't," he admitted honestly, voice steady. Mama." Her lips curved into a genuine smile as she slid a thick folder across the desk, gold letters of his name embossed on the cover. Jamal opened it slowly, his hands trembling as he saw ownership papers for a new restaurant downtown, already signed and waiting for him. "You're exactly the kind of person who should run this place. You have what money can't buy." You reminded me why this business matters. I don't even know what to say, his voice breaking from gratitude and shock. "Just promise me you'll lead with kindness. Always," she added softly. "I don't understand," he stammered, his voice cracking slightly as he looked up at her. Confusion etched across his face. "You helped me when no one else would," Naomi explained softly, her eyes unusually gentle. "I'm just a waiter," he whispered, still unable to believe what he was seeing, though hope flickered faintly in his chest now. "I know," she replied firmly, leaning forward. Tears welled up in his eyes as he whispered, "Then don't say anything," Naomi said, standing and extending her hand. "I swear, I promise, ma'am." Jamal nodded quickly, clasping her hand tightly, determination and humility lighting his dark eyes as he murmured. She smiled again, rare and sincere. As she released his hand and gestured toward the door, saying simply, "Go make it yours now." His heart pounding as he imagined all he could accomplish with this chance. Jamal descended the stairs slowly, clutching the folder to his chest that evening. He stood outside his new restaurant, the sign still dark, rain falling softly, and thought about how one choice had changed everything. He whispered to himself, "Kindness costs nothing but means everything," before unlocking the door to step into his brand new future. Sometimes, he thought, the smallest act can rewrite a story entirely, touching lives in ways you can't begin to imagine yet. And as the lights inside flickered on for the first time, he smiled faintly, whispering to the empty room, "Thank you for believing in me."